Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Monday. It's Makeover Monday today. Wherever you're at last week, it's over. Time to start a new week. Start to turn the screws, refine what we are, what we want to become. Start to think. It's a new week. What do I want to dive into? What do I want to let go of? What do I want to embrace? Maybe a little bit more reading, maybe a little bit more meditation or chanting, maybe a little bit more focus, maybe cutting out all that gluten, whatever it is. What you got, Kaustubha? You got to make over Monday for me?
What?
Are you in a perpetual state of are you already just made over?
You know, I have a plan. That I haven't quite, okay, this is good. It's good that you put me on the spot here because for a couple of weeks, I've been meaning to do this. I kind of laid out like a whole chart of the things that I want to accomplish on a daily basis and then on a weekly basis.
I like that.
And I want to make sure I get these things done, which means, a certain amount of, meditation within the day, which includes chanting japa, 16 rounds of Maha Mantra, which includes Gayatri Mantra 3 times a day, which I tend to space out on.
If you miss that Gayatri, it's sort of like you missed it.
It's gone. Yeah.
You're supposed to do it at when the sun rises, at high noon, and when the sun sets. So
Yeah.
if for some reason you're not got that set up, you've missed that time to check in with the Gayatri.
Then a certain amount of asana and exercise. I had a whole bunch of things there, and what I want to be able to do is not even exactly to pressure me to do it. Make sure I do it every day. Like if I miss a day or miss something, I'm not going to get upset about it. But I want to be able to, at the end of the week, look back and see whether I'm just like going off course. You know what I'm saying? Where the focus needs to go. So that's my makeover Monday will be to get that process going this week.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Very beautiful. And how was your Bhakti 101 yesterday?
Bhakti 101 was fun. I got a little carried away. I thought I was going to end it early, but we started getting into Mahabharata stories, and I went overtime without even knowing.
It goes on forever. That never ends. Mahabharata stories.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Just keep going with that.
But we had a great time. We've covered like over 8 hours of classes. And we got still, maybe we're halfway through or something like that. So we'll pick it up next Saturday again.
Kaustubha's all these classes, they're working towards a book because I'm encouraging him. I think the yoga community needs like a gold standard of yoga philosophy in their teacher training courses. So that's what Kaustubha's putting together with these teachings. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to your stuff. Man.
My stuff is just my stories. It's just my stories. That's my book I'm working on. And the more I write them down, the more I realize like whatever crazy. But I want to say something cool. Rich Roll sent me a text yesterday, and he said our podcast was at the top of the charts, #1. The Raghunath.
Was that like all podcasts or what was that?
Truthfully, I didn't look at it. He just sent me this thing.
All
He
right.
said
Well, that's
under
very cool.
education, I think.
Well, so we're probably still getting people coming over from the Rich Roll podcast. So welcome
Yeah.
to them again.
Yeah, if you're listening, welcome. We start our day today with a little nectar nugget. Can I tell you a little nectar nugget? It has to do with what we were talking about yesterday.
Why does it always have to be nectar involved in it? But go
nectar.
ahead.
That's a devotee word, nectar.
Because nectar is like a liquid thing. A nugget is like a solid thing. They don't
Good
go
point.
together, right?
Nectar, calcified nectar.
Okay.
Sort of like maple sugar candy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Come on. You got, Canadians know what I'm talking about. All right, so check this out. It has especially to do with what we were talking about yesterday, about how people can praise you, and then one person makes a comment that's cruel, and you get affected by that.
Oh, on Saturday.
Yes, we talked about that Saturday.
Okay.
And so it talks about how to deal. It's a story and reflection about how to deal with the cruel people of this world.
All right.
Ever have any cruel people in your life, Kaustubha?
You know, they've passed through my world on occasion.
Well, it's one of those things you can't avoid it because it's just the nature of the world. There's always going to be offensive people in this world. And even Maharaj Yudhisthira, who is Arjuna's older brother, he is Ajata Shatru. He has no enemies, meaning in his way he sees the world. He's got no enemies. But that doesn't mean people don't like him. Like Christ had no enemies. That doesn't mean people, they wanted to they crucified Christ.
Even people that saw him as an enemy, he didn't see them as an enemy.
Exactly.
Okay.
So here, check this little nectarian nugget. One day, there was a very wise man walking through the village, and a very angry and rude young man came up and began insulting him, hurling all kinds of rude words. And he wanted to ridicule and demean him. And the wise man wasn't upset by the insults. Instead, he asked the young man, "Tell me, if you buy a gift for someone and that person does not take the gift, to whom does that gift belong?"
If you give a gift to someone, but the person does not take the gift, to whom does the gift
Whom does it belong?
It belongs
And the young
to
man, he was sort of,
Want me to guess?
He was
I
sort
guess?
of caught back. No, don't guess. Just let me just say it. The young man was surprised to be asked such a strange question and answered, "It would belong to me because I bought the gift." And the wise person said, "Yes, that is correct. And it's exactly the same way with your anger. If you become angry with me and I do not get insulted, then the anger falls back on you. You are the only one who becomes unhappy, not me. All you have done is hurt yourself. What do you think about that?"
Boom. Okay. And what did the guy do at that point? Was he like, "Oh my God, you've
What have I done?
What have I done?
What have I done to myself?
But that's
It's really true, though. People are just like, it's a culture where everybody's offended at everybody else,
Yeah.
and they're just often angry.
We got to let
And they
it go.
have to sit with that anger. And in the name of our growth, our spiritual growth, even our growth in our things we want to correct in the material world, we have to become more loving. We shouldn't hate the hate. We shouldn't hate the hateful. We shouldn't hate the sinner. You hate the sin. You don't hate the sinner. You hate the sin.
Like that. Your little wisdom nugget. I'm gonna call it a wisdom nugget, not a nectar nugget.
A nectar nugget.
But your little wisdom nugget. It reminded me of another one, in this one that I'm sure you know.
Well, while you're at it, let's get on the chat board. Who's voting for nectar nugget and who's voting for wisdom nugget? Just place your bets right there. Nectar nugget or wisdom nugget, so we can just settle on this once and for all.
Okay. But you know what that reminded me of? And it's a really valuable one. And it has to do with this subject where it's like people are prone to criticize. Get used to it. Oh man. I was part of a online Zoom get together recently that Raghunath Swami was involved in. And someone asked a question and his answer was so good. But someone asked, like sometimes the person was asking the question, like in a mood of like, I've been hurt kind of, And it was like kind of like, sometimes people don't understand you or they misunderstand your intentions. And even though you try to
Right.
explain yourself, they still don't understand, and it hurts. She didn't even say that it hurts, but he said, I know it hurts when we're misunderstood like that. But then he kind of like encouraged everyone to go deeper, that
Mm.
like, and he referred to the prayers of Saint Francis, where he says, let me seek not to understand, not let me seek not to be understood, but to understand. Right? You're familiar with those
It's
prayers, right?
yeah. Prayers of Saint Francis.
So he said,
To be
this,
to
yeah,
love instead of being loved. Do you have a
yeah,
prayer with you?
yes, all of that, and so his point was we should get used to it, that this world is like that we're going to be misunderstood. We shouldn't get so upset or disturbed when we're not understood, because we should understand right from the beginning that we will be misunderstood in this world. That's going to come up. That's going to be part of our life. But when we seek to understand, when that's where rather than focusing our mind and absorbing it, and I'm not being understood, it's unfair, I'm not being, rather than absorbing our mind in that way, when we absorb our mind and trying to understand, then when we're misunderstood, it becomes much less significant.
Mm.
We pass through it with ease when when we're focused on being the giver rather than the receiver, when we're focused on serving rather than being served, when we're focused on understanding rather than being understood. Then whenever we're misunderstood, it's much easier. It's yeah, that's taken for granted that that's going to happen. I can't get shaken up by that. And so that connected with the nectar nugget that I was going to bring out today. We're getting, oh, I'm sorry, wisdom nugget.
That, my friend, is a nugget of nectar.
Okay. But you know that story, and I know that Srila Prabhupada told the story. It probably goes way back. It's probably one of these Indian folk kind of like little things. But it talks about a grandfather and his grandson and their donkey, and they're passing through a town,
Oh yeah.
right? It's a really good
Yeah.
one, I think, right? And
I'm
so,
not crazy about that one, but it's
well,
gotten
by
some
the time
nectar.
I'm done with this,
It's
you're
got
gonna
some
like it.
it's got some nectar in it.
No, by the time we're done, I think you're gonna like it. How could you not like this one? So this grandfather, his grandson, and they have their donkey, and they're passing through town, and the grandson is riding on the donkey. Or no, no, no. First, neither of them are riding on the what? No, 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 no. They're both okay. First, the
It doesn't
grandson is
even
on the
matter,
donkey.
actually.
Yeah,
You
it
can
doesn't
just
matter,
change
right?
it. Okay.
Yeah. So first, the grandson is on the donkey, and they're walking through the town, and people are looking at him and saying, "What is this? This is absurd." They have this old man is here, and this young man is riding on the donkey. Why not do the right thing, the moral thing here, and
Yeah.
let the old man ride on the donkey? He's old, and the young man should be walking.
Yeah.
And so they pass through the town, and people are criticizing them. Now they're passing through the next town, and people are looking at him saying, oh, so now they switch it up, and they say, oh my God, maybe we're doing something wrong here. So now the old man's on the donkey, and the grandson is walking, and they say, what the hell is this? This is absurd. Here's this young boy, being forced to walk, and the old
How dare
man is riding on that. The grown man should be doing the walking, and he should put the boy on the donkey. This is crazy, you know.
and
So they say, oh
and
my God,
then
maybe we're doing something wrong. They say, why don't we
they
both
both
get on the
they
donkey?
both get on the
Right.
donkey.
Yeah, they both get on the
And
donkey, and now it's passing the town, and everybody's saying, this
the
is
animal
just
rights activist came out.
cruelty.
This is
That
horrible.
you got two people riding on this poor donkey. It's absurd. What are they doing? They're going, oh my God, okay, maybe we both get off the donkey. Then they pass to the next town. These people are so stupid. They have a perfectly good donkey here, and nobody's riding on it. It's just like, no matter what we do in this world, you know, when people within their heart have their within their mind, they have, they're fixed on criticizing. It's part of where we're seeking juice and nectar in life, is to criticize others, to find fault in others, and it gets absurd. We can't become too concerned with it. We can't become too disturbed by it, because it's
Mm.
always going to be there. We just need to do what's right.
That's why they say, do good and they will talk. Do bad and they will talk. So do you and let them talk.
Oh, well, okay.
Think about that, Kaustubha.
All right. That was very good. Thank you.
It's true. even like when I was on the best behavior of my life.
When was
The
that?
best behavior. Like, when was the best behavior of your life? When we were brahmacharis,
Was
when
it?
we were monks. You go to bed early, you wake up early, you don't do this, you don't do this, you do this, you do this. The best behavior of my life. And me and Paramananda were living in the ashram, and you could, I mean, in one sense, we were doing everything right, self-controlled, disciplined, dedicating our lives. Took whenever money we made, we gave back in charity. We still got so much criticism. Not only did people criticize, they even fabricated stuff that wasn't true. Do you remember that whole rumor? Like when we were living in Philadelphia, part of the hardcore scene was saying, "Oh, these guys have a whole." What did they say? They had something like they said we had a game room in the basement filled with like pinball machines, and people just want to make stuff up.
Yeah.
And they live in that. And they're sad.
You know where we should live in?
The
Bhagavatam.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Does anybody hear my cat? My cat, when he doesn't get what he wants, he starts speaking in a human-like voice, like, open that door. Like,
Nobody heard anything.
he's like going crazy right now. All right.
Do you want to chant your mantras?
Yes. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Priyeshva Badreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual masters, who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the ointment of knowledge. There you go. Wasn't that cool what Vrinda said yesterday? It's soka or shloka. Did you like that?
No, it's that the shloka was born out of the shoka.
Oh, the shloka was born out of the soka. The transcendental information was born out of the sadness.
Yeah, or even you could say the poetic meter of the shloka was born out of the shoka. Yeah,
I was trying to look for a deeper.
Well, it was deep, right? I mean, it wasn't just the meter, but in other words, it was a beautiful expression that grew out of his shoka.
Sadness.
Shoka. Yeah. You like that?
Okay, let's dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is our daily study of yoga. You know what, Kaustubha? I gotta say something.
Are we ever going to get started here?
Well, no. Well, you know why? Because
27 minutes in. But go ahead.
27 minutes in.
Yeah.
All right.
No, go
Should I
ahead.
wait till tomorrow to say something?
No. Go say what you got to say. I want to hear it.
Well, there was a very critical comment in our message board. But
oh yeah, let's not get into that now. We can get into that
no,
another
all right.
time. But
come on, I got something. Now everyone's going to look. All right.
We can discuss that at length.
Let's talk it tomorrow, because I think it's good to like dissect these.
All right.
I feel misunderstood. Okay.
You see? You let it go.
I let it get to me. Okay.
All right.
All right. So we are in Canto 3.
Chapter 5.
Chapter
5.
5.
Vidur's Talks with Maitreya. We're on text number 23 today, which is where this chapter's been going. It started with Vidur asking a bunch of questions, and then Maitreya kind of glorified Vidur a little bit, and now he begins to answer his questions. Yeah. And the questions started with asking about creation, right? Again and again, this topic's going to come up in Bhagavatam because it gives us perspective, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Text 23.
Text 23.
The personality of Godhead, the master of all living entities, existed prior to the creation as one without a second. It is by his will only that creation is made possible, and again, everything merges in him. This supreme self is symptomized by different names.
Text 24. And I really like this verse. I really love the comment. This commentary is really fascinating. I think we can dig into this commentary.
Okay. Kaustubha, you read this. I'm going to liberate this cat, okay? Because
Oh,
I'm
you go.
losing my
Okay, let
marbles
the
here.
cat out. But you need to hear this verse too, so be
Okay.
quick. All right. You're not going to let the cat out?
Well, I want you to, I don't
Okay.
want there to be a dead air while I'm going
All
to get
right.
the cat.
All right. So here it goes. The Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. Right. Interesting. It uses this word seer. This is describing before the creation of this particular material universe. How there's cycles of creation and then like kind of almost like a sleeping time, and then there's a recreation again. So it says the Lord, the undisputed proprietor of everything, was the only seer. And that term seer drista is the same term used in Yoga Sutras to describe, the conscious being, right? So at that point, he's the only seer. The cosmic manifestation was not present at that time, and thus he felt imperfect without his plenary and separated parts and parcels. The material energy was dormant, whereas the internal potency was manifested. All right. So it's an interesting verse. It's saying that it's described. It's said that this is like a poetic device, right? That the Lord was feeling somehow. How did it describe it? He felt imperfect without his plenary and separated parts and parcels.
Mm.
What that means is, in other words, almost like he was lonely, right? He wanted someone to play with, in a sense.
Oh, that's adorable.
Isn't it? So here's the commentary. It says, the Lord is the supreme seer, the drista, right? Because only by his glance did the material energy become active for cosmic manifestation.
I'm getting the cat.
Okay, go ahead and get the cat. At that time, the seer was there, but the external energy over which the glance of the Lord is cast was not present. He felt somewhat insufficient. And here's the analogy. Oh, we're gonna your back. Cat's free.
Oh, now he's going to go. Just go.
Okay. So he says, at that time the seer was there, meaning God's there, but the external energy over which the glance of the Lord is cast was not present. And when it talks about the glance of the Lord, like when you read texts like Brahma Samhita, it says it's through the glance that the Lord impregnates the material energy with us, with the jivas, with the living beings, right? So it says, at that time the seer was there, but the external energy over which the glance of the Lord is cast was not present. He felt somewhat insufficient. And here's an analogy, and this is a bit risque, Raghunath, where we're going to go with
I
this.
love these risque analogies.
It's a bit risque, but it's really, it really clarifying. So he says, he felt somewhat insufficient, like a husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife. That's not the risque part yet. It's going to get
pretty
more.
risque.
It's going to get more risque.
You're really riding the edge today.
he says, then Prabhupada says, this is a poetic simile. The Lord wanted to create the cosmic manifestation to give another chance to the conditioned souls who were dormant in forgetfulness. Okay, forgetfulness of their relationship or the connection with him. The cosmic manifestation gives the conditioned souls a chance to go back home, back to Godhead, and that is its main purpose. The Lord is so kind that in the absence of such a manifestation, he feels something wanting, and thus the creation takes place. Although the creation of the internal potency was manifested, the spiritual realm, the other potency appeared to be sleeping, the material realm, and the Lord wanted to awaken her to activity. Okay, here's the risque part. You ready? Just as a husband wants to awaken his wife from sleeping, just as a husband wants to awaken his wife from the sleeping state for enjoyment. Okay? You got that, Raghu?
That's pretty risque.
It's saying, right?
When you hear it from the commentaries of the acharyas.
Right. But it's saying it's a beautiful analogy actually. And it's saying that we all have the potential. Every living being in the material world is in a sense asleep, right? We're asleep to the potential to enjoy personally with God. And so just as a husband wants to enjoy with his wife, but she's asleep, so he wakes her up, right? And even in the beginning, that waking up may be like an annoyance, like what? But then it opens up the opportunity for pleasure, and in this case, for like the divine reconnection of the soul with God. So all those events in our life, all those things that we're interpreting in different ways, right? This happens to me and that happens to me. I'm misunderstood, whatever it might be. In a sense, that's like the shaking, like, hey, wake up. And although it may feel like some kind of disturbance, it's really it's a loving um, touch that's there to reawaken us to this opportunity to enter into this very beautiful relationship, and enjoy that relationship.
Well, it's also revealing like Krishna actually has desires as well.
Mm-hmm.
And those, it's not like Krishna is just like this
That
monolithic. Okay, come worship me for your benefit. Krishna actually
right.
enjoys relationship.
Well, that's you bring up like half of the equation. That's like a fascinating theological conversation, right? Is that Krishna is somehow complete in himself and somehow desirous of sharing love with others, right? And the great acharyas of Bhakti, they've written on this subject and analyzed it in depth. Let's get into that in a bit, but let's continue with this commentary. But it's a really good point that you're bringing up. Um, it
Carry on,
says,
my
okay,
wayward son.
there'll be peace when we are done. Um, the Lord is so kind that in the absence of where the husband and wife see or her enjoyment, where
People
was it?
don't even know that quote, do they?
I imagine some
That's
do.
how old we are.
It'll pop up on the chat board. Um, okay. So again, it is the reawaken. Although the creation of the internal potency was manifested, the spiritual realm, the other potency, the material realm, appeared to be sleeping. And the Lord wanted to awaken her to activity, just as a husband wants to awaken his wife from the sleeping state for enjoyment. It is the compassion of the Lord for the sleeping energy that he wants to see her awaken for enjoyment, like the other wives who are awake. The whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to their real life of spiritual consciousness, so that they may thus become as perfect as the ever liberated souls in the Vaikuntha Lokas, in the spiritual realm. Since the Lord is Sat Chid Ananda Vigraha, since his form, his very form, is composed of eternality, knowledge, and bliss, he likes every part and parcel of his different potencies to take part in that blissful rasa, because
By the way,
participation.
that's
Yeah,
pretty interesting in itself.
yeah,
God's form. If you like, what is our like? Our form is made up of the elements on the periodic table. What's God's form made up of? Eternality,
yeah,
knowledge, and bliss.
right.
Interesting.
Well, it's actually we are of that same nature, and of course the example of the sun is always given in this. Right? Like the sun, it has it's the energy that emanates from the sun, the rays of the sun. They're made of the same quality of the sun, right? The qualities of the sun would be,
Heat and light.
yeah, heat and light. So because the quality of the sun is heat and light, the rays that emanate from the sun also possess those same qualities, heat and light. But one is the source and one is the emanation from that source.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
similarly, the nature of God is eternality, knowledge, and bliss. The word chit here. Sat refers to eternality. Chit, it refers to knowledge as well as just awareness or consciousness. So it's God is eternal, God is conscious and full of knowledge, and also full of bliss. And it's not that he exists in some form that's separate from, but his very form is composed of that energy. We are also composed of that energy, but we are situated within a body that's not, right? We're situated in a body that's asat, achit, nirananda. That is really quite the opposite. That we're in a body that's very temporary. We're in a body that tends to be covered by illusion or ignorance, and we're in a body that is often miserable, not blissful.
It's often miserable.
Oh, it
It's
happens.
Good morning. Happy Monday,
Yeah. Well, here's the happy part,
miserable
though.
people.
No, here's the happy part. So since the Lord is such it Ananda Vigraha, he likes that every part and parcel, that means us, of his different potencies to take part in the blissful rasa. Rasa here means, literally the word means juice or taste, but specifically here in this context of bhakti rasa, it means the the nectar, the
The
um,
nectar,
the
sweet
the
nectar drink.
blissful, the flavors, the subtle and variety of beautiful flavors of relationships in all the different forms that it takes. The love of a mother for a child, the love of a friend for another friend, the love of a lover for the one they love. That's called rasa. And so he says he wants all his different parts and parcels to take part in his blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal Rasa Lila, and Rasa Lila refers to the circle dance that the Lord does in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, because participation with the Lord in his Rasa Lila is the highest living condition, perfect in spiritual bliss and eternal knowledge, right? That's that Ananda and Chit. So it's saying that our experience here in the material world is an opportunity for us to wake up, and anything that's shaken us up, you know, whatever it may be, we should try to understand as the Lord trying to shake us up, to wake us up to the opportunity to enter into this Rasa Lila, right? Enter into this relationship with him. And when you read the description of the Rasa Lila in the Bhagavatam, it's, I love the way, I think every sentence here is kind of like invested with a lot of meaning,
Mm.
because when he says, participation with the Lord in his eternal Rasa Lila is the highest living condition, perfect in spiritual bliss and eternal knowledge. It's the highest. What does that mean? It's the highest living condition. When we think of the Rasa dance, it's like there's a circle and everything's rotating around Krishna, right?
Mm.
And in that
Mm.
condition, and when it describes that, it describes how, I mean, really that Rasa Lila, from the perspective of Bhakti Yoga, from Bhakti Yogis, or you could even, I would argue, and the Bhakti Yogis would argue from from the perspective of Vyasadeva himself, the author of all the yoga literature. It's the culmination of everything, right? Like of all the yoga literature that Vyasadeva had provided, of the four Vedas, of the Upanishads, of the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta Sutra, and of all the Puranas, they all build and build and build and build, you know, till you get to that point, the Rasa Lila. That's the climax of it all. That the meaning of yoga, we see this through this vast literature, a progression of a message that one can live piously and enjoy the material world, but there's something higher, renouncing the things of this world and coming in touch with one's spiritual nature. But there's something higher, and that is bhakti, connecting in love with God. And that love can become further, um, condensed, from love, the love that's full of awe and reverence, to a love that's intimate. And even that intimate love finds its highest expression, in this very intensified love of the gopis for Krishna. That's finally expressed verbally from them just prior to the Rasa Lila, and then expressed physically in the dance itself, right? Because in that dance, they have a chance to open their hearts and express themselves to him. And that's representing the soul expressing itself to God, being, the awakened soul, expressing its feelings to God. It's a
So this is,
really
if you're
powerful
unfamiliar with
message.
this is that famous picture you see where there's a million Krishnas dancing with a million girls. So
Mm.
sometimes you see it, now that I say that, if you're not familiar with that painting, you'll see it. It's
In
around. It's a
India,
very
yeah.
popular. But you start to think, well, who is this? Many visions of the same being, and who are these? You're the girl. You're the girl, and Krishna's trying to dance with you. That's you, and he's asking you, "Hey, come on, it's time to dance."
Wake up.
And instead of accepting the hand of Krishna to dance, I'm accepting the hand of the material world. I was like,
Mm.
"No, I got a better idea, Krishna. I'd rather dance with illusion." And Krishna is constantly asking, petitioning us to please choose spirit over dull matter. And in the course of the day, there's many forks in the road. What are you going to choose? You're going to dance with Krishna, or you're going to dance with Maya all day long. That is the constant petition I'm getting from Krishna.
Yeah. Wake up.
Wake up.
Right. Yeah.
Dance with me.
Oh no.
Oh, I was set up for that one. I want to
No,
be a partner,
I
can't
said
you
wake up.
see?
I didn't say anything about. I
I
believe
just
the band
came
was
out.
Orleans, right?
Who sang that song?
I think I just said. I think the band was called Orleans, if I remember correctly.
You know this stuff, man.
I grew up in the '70s.
I know, but I didn't know who it was.
Um, so any case, again, looking at that Rasa Leela, right, and just to explain it a little bit more for everyone, the Bhagavatam is going to explain how bhakti is the culmination of all the different yoga paths, and that's laid out right in the very beginning, and then you get descriptions of understanding how through his potency, like we're reading right now about creation, that ultimately creation is coming from this Krishna, and throughout the Bhagavatam we're going to hear how he's the ultimate shelter and how he's ultimately merciful and kind, and how so much is described, his creation, etc., etc. But when we get to the 10th canto, it's for the first time Vyasadeva is in depth, in detail, going to describe God, the person, Bhagavan, not God's energy, all pervasive energy of Brahman, which we can read about in the Upanishads, not the Paramatma, which is also described in the Upanishads, but in great depth, far greater depth than he did in Mahabharata. He's going to describe Krishna from his birth and his whole life. And when we get to see not only Krishna, but we get to see those beings that love him intimately in the different rasas, in the different varieties of love. And the most exalted, the most praised, considered to be the Yogeshvaris, the highest yogis of all, because their minds are completely absorbed in God, is the gopis. And the way that the Rasa Leela plays out is that the gopis are all in their homes, and on the perfect night, the full moon night, in the fall season, which is like in Vrindavan, it's like the perfect weather, and the light is, the sky's lit up because the moon is full.
It's
He
after the
goes
rain, so everything
after the
is
rain,
green.
fresh, yeah, green, and he goes to the bank of the river under a tree, which we still go to that place, right? I love going there, Vangsivat, and he plays his flute. And that flute is just like we're reading about here today. Wake up, come out to me. I'm here. You can come and enjoy with me, So when the gopis, when they hear that sound of the flute and it enters into their ears, it goes straight to the heart. And each one of them feels like a calling, right? Like a very strong calling to drop everything, drop their family relationships, drop any kind of social duties that they have, drop everything and anything and run to him, right? And it's even described that like some of them were in the middle of cooking, they just left it on the stove and they ran. Some of them were like they're putting on their makeup, they had like like eye makeup done on one eye and not the other. They ran. They just, that calling was so strong. And on the way out the door, their families are telling them, a girl doesn't run out in the middle of the night to be with some boy. It's not her husband or anything. This is, it's totally wrong. Don't do it. So like the material world is calling us not to surrender, right? It's like when we
Mm.
when we want to run to God, there's going to be people that are going to tell us, don't do it. It's wrong, and even to the point where it's just like, if you do it, don't come back. Like you're gonna have to give up everything for this. But they didn't care. They gave up everything. They ran out. They ran out to the forest. They found Krishna, and now, yeah,
I was just saying, as you get into bhakti, there is you get more and more this option of, do you want Krishna? Do you that will come every day,
yeah,
practically speaking. And as you like surrender a little bit more, you go further down this path, and Krishna is luring you right out of the material world. And sometimes it's very abrupt, you know. Uh, People get such a loud calling to surrender to Krishna. Nothing else can make sense. And sometimes it's like a very, very gradual path. We're
hmm
just being like spoon fed bhakti year after year after year. And then there's certain events in our life that call us to do a quicker surrender, an immediate surrender.
wake up.
Like right now,
Yeah,
here's your thing. We get spoon fed. Now you get the full dose. And so, yeah, it's very beautiful, the spiritual path. It's not an on and off switch. I'm spiritual. I'm not spiritual. It's very, very sort of gradual, and Krishna knows exactly when to push forward and give you those big options.
mm.
And some of you are going through them right now. Some of you are just like, you know what? I'm just going to choose to wake up every morning at 5 a.m., or I'm just going to choose to listen to the Bhagavatam every day. And a lot of people in my life think I'm crazy for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And um, you're answering that call, and some of us are hitting the snooze button. I hit the snooze button today
I want
too.
to go
So I was
back
like,
to
I
sleep.
don't wanna.
Yeah, you know,
But you know what? I
yeah,
will say, in my own defense here, I am roped into the Bhagavatam by leading this podcast with you.
hmm
I'm roped into the Bhagavatam. I'm roped into a community, and we want to rope ourselves in a healthy way to people that sort of direct us when we're feeling strong and when we're feeling weak. I couldn't have done the text at 4:15 and just said, I'm not coming into work today.
but
you
you're
know,
roped in.
we're roped by, like we're herded in by Krishna, the cowherd boy is
Mm.
herding us,
Goading us along.
goading us along.
I
This
can't, in relation to all that you're sharing, I just can't help, my heart, uh, I really need to reach out to her, but my heart goes out to Ashley Rodriguez, who's a regular listener of ours,
Oh yeah.
who, it was, I think 5 months ago that her husband got in a really horrible um, motorcycle accident. So I believe she has a couple kids and another one on the way. And as she's pregnant, her husband gets in this horrible accident and is hospitalized. He's been in the I read a post from her the other day, and it said that this past week was the first week in 5 months that her husband hadn't had to be under anesthesia to go through some surgical
Oh, you're kidding.
procedure. Can you imagine that? 5 months, at least once a week, having surgery. And she's trying to, like, take care of her kids and take care of her husband. The heartache that she must be going through and the struggle is so intense. But her response to it is just continually like seeing God's hand working in her life and feeling gratitude rather than feeling um, bitterness or confusion. It's like you're waking me up. You're like really shaking me hard. But I'm open for it. I'm ready for it. It's waking me up to you. It's so hard to do, but when you see a person do it, it's so impressive. You know.
Mm,
So yeah,
yeah.
there's that
We'll say some
shaking. There's that
prayers for
calling.
Ashley Rodriguez right now.
Yeah, for her husband. So there's that shaking. There's a calling. The gopis, they run out to the forest, and again, I really just want to stress again that the 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 culmination of all the yoga teachings from the writings of Vyasadeva himself now come at this very pinnacle of all the Vedic literature, where the gopis speak to Krishna, because we read about the gopis' love for Krishna earlier in the Bhagavatam, but they actually don't open their mouth and express their feelings, express their hearts to Krishna. But they do that at this time because when they run out to the forest, they're under the moonlight, under the tree with Krishna, and Krishna's looking at them. He's got his flute there, and Krishna says to them, he says something that just seems like, why would you, this isn't the time to tease these girls. They've just given up everything for you, right? So that they're there, they're standing in front of Krishna, and he says, "What are you all doing here?" He's just called them, in the most powerfully seductive way, called them to come enjoy with him through his flute playing. And now they've given up everything. They've run it out. They're out there with him. And he says, well, what are you all doing here in the middle of the night out in the forest to come see a boy? This is wrong. You know, this is this is immoral. What are you doing? You should all turn around right now and go back. Go back to your lives. Go back to your social roles that you play in the lives that you lead. And they're looking at him like, please don't say this to us. It's like, by saying that, by teasing them in this way, what it does is it creates the circumstance whereby they're forced to open up their hearts to say what's really going on within their hearts.
Mm.
And basically the message, and this message, the way that I understand it, is this is the message that we are meant to get through all of yoga practice. It all leads up to this message. They say, Krishna, you're telling us to go back, go back to our social roles and our lives separate from you. We've given all that up, right? We've given, in other words, like, we all go through this world trying to find happiness, trying to find pleasures separate from God. We've tried it in one way, we've tried it in 10 ways, we tried it in 1,000 ways, and we keep trying. And at a certain point, the soul says, enough. I've given up on all that. Don't ask me to go back to that. And they say, all we want now is to serve you. Please accept us. That message, I've had enough of the material realm. I don't want it anymore. Dear God, all I want is you now. Please accept me. That's the point that yoga is meant to bring us to. That's all. It's simple and it's pure. It's about love, and it's about really recognizing one's true nature. My true nature is in connection with you, and it's only when that's fully realized that I become happy, that I find my fulfillment. So when Prabhupada says here that he says he likes every part and parcel, every one of us, every spiritual being, every ray that emanates from him. He wants of his different potencies to take part in the blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal rasa lila is the highest living condition, perfect in spiritual bliss and eternal knowledge. And so Krishna accepts them, and they do the dance. And the dance is an expression of love in the most perfectly beautiful, astoundingly artistic way, right? Through the music and through the dance and through all their expressions, you know. It's a very, very powerful
Sometimes
message. Yeah.
we'll listen to this message, or we'll get onto the podcast. We're sort of like entertained by it, or sort of we're curious by it, or sort of spiritually inspired by it. And even the meaning of what you're reading right now, or what the Bhagavatam's saying, it'll be stored in the brain, but we're not necessarily fully applying it. But it'll be stored there. And then what'll happen is
Like a seed.
it will manifest when you need it.
Mhm.
Like when everything starts to crumble of the material world. It's a precarious situation we are in the material world, isn't it? It's
It
sort
is.
of like we have a strong desire to love because we're loving beings. All we want to do is love in this world, but everything of the material world is temporary. It's like, what a precarious situation that is. What are we supposed to do with that? Falling in love with matter. And then, of course, when things start to melt, the Bhagavatam is there to buoy us.
Hmm.
And so, even if we're not feeling like the strong spiritual calling, what we're doing is we're creating a new type of intelligence here, that when things start to crack, Krishna's there, the Bhagavatam's there, the community is there to give some type of support and to give us some genuine shelter.
Is that where the
That's the
band name
yoga.
came from? Is that the idea?
What's that?
Is that where your band name came from?
Shelter? Yeah, it's the ultimate shelter.
All right. Beautiful. You mentioned earlier about, what was it again that you mentioned about how, Krishna desires, right?
Krishna's desire. Yeah.
Like, in other words, it's not just that he's this all powerful being and we're just desperate, but he actually desires us too. There's a really interesting explanation of that, because there is a paradox. Maybe, I don't know if we have time to get into now. Maybe pick it up tomorrow. What do you think? It's a little.
It
Let's
depends
pick it
how
up
long
tomorrow.
the paradox is.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth discussing more at length. Why don't we hang on till tomorrow? But we can dip into some of the commentaries from. There's a great book that I really love. Ramanujacharya, one of the great bhakti yogis in history, right? Super important teacher. He wrote a beautiful commentary on Bhagavad Gita, the Sri Ramanuja Bhasya, his commentary, and I love reading that commentary. And there's another book that I get that kind of summarizes his commentary called Ramanuja on the Gita, and within that book, it has so many really clear expressions. It's a little. This stuff is a little bit philosophically like dense, but sometimes they just really summarize things like so clearly and efficiently. And in there, there's a discussion about, is it that if God is complete, by nature, if God is complete and whole, and we read about that in the Upanishads and so on, Om Purnam Adaha Purnamidam, like God is complete, then why does he need us?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You
and
found a loophole,
yeah,
Kaustubha.
well, you see that they address this loophole. So is God complete or incomplete? Does he need us or does he not need us? What's the nature of that? How do we understand that? That's our cliffhanger for today. We'll
Hmm.
we'll pick that up tomorrow. And then you split on Wednesday, right? You're traveling.
Yeah. We're gonna take Wednesday and Thursday off to
Oh,
Wednesday or this week.
okay.
Thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for joining us. People joining us late. People joining us from Rich Roll. Check us out every day. We're here 5 a.m. almost every day, except when I have to split. But we are here for you at your service. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and you want to join us live, it's a fun little live group here on Zoom. You've got to write to Mara to get the secret codes. That's our email address is wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And this is a community supported podcast, meaning it goes on by the generosity of the community. So if you like what we're doing, you can go to patreon.com/wisdomofthesages and give some monthly pledge of your choice. Thanks to everybody for joining us late here on Zoom, and see people I didn't say hello to: Liam, Ananta, Chase. Who else is here? They left early.